that I get to start here. Can everybody hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Geez, kind of hard to where to start. I mean, everybody that's involved in the program knows what it's about. Uh, for me, Integral was something that I just kind of fell in love with. I was more interested in the education and what I was studying than what was going to happen after college. I was fairly naive when it came to that, because I thought somehow I'll just get a job and life will take its own course. And so I very accidentally fell into the recruiting field. It was actually another Integral alumni who was working at a small boutique staffing firm in San Jose, who happened to be on campus doing on-campus interviews, as St. Mary's usually sets up every year. And I just happened by luck to interview with him, talk to him for about 20 minutes. He said, look, I know you've gone through the program. I can do recruiting. You can do recruiting. He's like, it's a great job. You make good money, etc. To me, I was just looking for a position, probably for a year, because I was trying to save up money for to go on to a PhD program. I got accepted to a couple, but deferred enrollment. And this seemed like one way to get money going, and went into it. And I didn't really enjoy it that much, but I was good at it. And I found out that once I left that company, it was actually the culture there that was keeping me from enjoying my job as much as possible. So I went on and just, with a person that I'd met there, we created the mice groups now about 20 years ago, and have kept doing it ever since. And I know one of the big questions is always, how did Integral help in your either your career choices or on your job? What are these, I guess, skills that you can transfer, or how do you utilize it? And to be quite honest, I think the biggest tool that Integral gives you is learning to think more critically, being able to step back and kind of see the big picture, and see the data in context, referring to the books that we're reading, but also historically seeing, hey, how did this text fit into what was going on at the time? And so, I read a bunch of contracts, but the majority of my job, what actually, I guess, we get paid for, is interacting with people. And I will say that I feel something that people don't talk about very much is the level of people interaction that you're getting with your fellow students. You're with the same group for 4 years, and you're interacting with other students, but it really teaches you how to listen to what someone is saying, and it teaches you how to communicate exactly what's going on in your mind, your thoughts, your ideas, and that's something that sometimes doesn't happen very much if you're sitting in a lecture hall, getting information to memorize, to spit out on a test or something. The writing aspect was another big part. A lot of what I do is writing, whether it's short communication to clients, or if I'm writing up contracts or whatnot. Again, all incredible things that I never knew I was going to be doing, but I thank God for what I learned in Integral, because I feel like it really helped me excel at my job. I saw other people that I was sitting next to doing the same job, and they were struggling a bit more because it seemed like they just didn't have those tools to really communicate and really see what was going on. I hope that wasn't too broad there, but just trying to put it all in a nutshell for you.
Thank you, Aco.
Yeah, of course.
Mm-hmm. So shall we move on to Dickson?
Sure. Aco, that was great. And Steve Corwin, it's good to see you. It's been a gazillion years. And Ted, how are you? So I was Integral 86. I think we probably still hold a record for the largest freshman class. There were a couple of recruiters at the time that did a fantastic job outreach to high schools. I learned about an integral from my favorite teacher in high school, who was also a St. Mary's grad, and I was always humanities oriented. And he was my AP history teacher, and he said, "Look, what do you want to do?" Of course, a couple of family members were lawyers, and I thought, "Isn't that the interesting thing to do?" And he said, "Well, why don't you take a look at this program at St. Mary's?" And I thought, "Wow, what an interesting background, and seems like a good way to move forward, and then eventually go to law school." I mean, when you're 17, you think you've got the whole world figured out, and here's your path that you're mapping for yourself. Things didn't work out that way, and in fact, I think I'm better for it. I joined the program, loved it. It was difficult in many ways and fun, and in other ways it was fairly easy. You're always attracted to the idea of, wait, there are no grades. And and in high school I did national debate, so I was always pretty comfortable, on my feet. So seminar was a lot of fun. But somewhere in the middle of junior year or so, I got a couple of summer jobs and started working. And I didn't grow up with very much money, and I came to the conclusion that, well, one, after talking to and visiting a bunch of law firms, what a horrible life. I was not going to sign up for that. And it just wasn't interesting, because in some ways, the law, in a sense, wants you to think deductively and so forth, but it's actually kind of narrow. At least that was the conclusion I, at a ripe old age of 19. At the same time, though, I was in love with the program. I thought, oh, I'm going to go and get a philosophy degree, and I'm going to teach. I was inspired by a lot of the tutors in the program. And then, honestly, for me, I sort of collected myself, and the notion of enlightened poverty was just not very interesting. And so I didn't do that either. And at that time, and I think St. Mary's changed quite a bit. I've been involved in the Dean's Advisory Board, and I've met some great students and young adults there. And I thought, wow, where were you when I was at St. Mary's? Because I think the faculty and the students there are just like infinitely more interesting than from my memory. But at that time, if you're a liberal arts major, I think the only jobs that the recruiters who came on campus were going to pitch you is like you were going to go sell insurance for MetLife. And I thought, like, what an incredibly horrible existence that would be. So instead, I just charted my own path, and the Career Center actually hooked me up with this startup. And the only job I could get was as an administrative assistant, believe it or not. So my first job out of college was as an EA. But that was okay, because the woman who hired me said, look, you're way smarter than this job calls for. And so I need an assistant, but also tell you what, I'll teach you everything I know. And so, one of the lessons that I think you guys should take away is mentorship is incredibly important, and finding sponsorship. But, she gave me a lot of leeway, and, my normal day job I did in a couple hours during the day. The rest of the time I got to do research for her and do special projects. And, next thing you know, I'm actually a product manager in a technology company, which was like astounding. And things sort of move forward from there. I think that for me, some of it's your own personality, but I would say that certainly as I reflect on it, I certainly took the path, less taken. But I think that the program for me, as I reflect back on it, helped me develop some skills, some of which I had, but also helped refine it. But, the kind of things I think about finally are, the idea of just investigation and problem solving, right? Imagine freshman year doing Euclid, or going out, hanging around with Ken Cardwell, who we would go and watch the stars, right? And talk about Ptolemy. And, it's fun at the time, but when you think back on it, what you're doing is you're developing kind of, you're exacerbating your own, or accelerating your own sense of curiosity. But the idea that you can go and solve problems in some structured way and really have a sense of investigation, you don't really get that in a lot of structured, traditional majors, right? Because textbook base, you're expected to just memorize a bunch of facts, you spit it back out, hopefully you retain some of it, and you learn a trade. Here, you're not learning a trade, you're not learning a whole lot other than how to learn. And some of it helps you become a better person, frankly. And I think the other piece that I look back and people I've hired over the years and my own interactions is seminars been incredibly interesting, right? Because here's a forum by which a lot of work has to go into it. Imagine, I don't know, I can't remember the schedule now, but I thought it was kind of pretty aggressive in terms of number of pages to read to get to just through freshman year, right? I mean, let's go crank through the Iliad in 4 weeks, and then be able to discuss it. But the skills you learn in terms of good collaborative debate and being able to advocate for a position and talk to other people, those are all like lifelong skills. I remember I had the great privilege over the years to spend some time with the World Economic Forum. And I think about a conversation I had with a guy named Li Kanfu, who's probably one of the leading lights of artificial intelligence. He runs a $2 billion fund out of China. And we were talking, and I said, look, is AI just going to take over everything? And he said, well, a lot of things. On the other hand, the things that it won't replace are creativity, communications, and compassion. And if you think about the jobs of the future, nursing and medical and things like that, usually if you're already have a bent towards compassion, but if you work on core skills around discovery and creativity, and you work on and you develop skills around collaborative debate and discourse, that can't be automated away. And that will serve you well in terms of then navigating through either work situations or other kind of social situations. So anyway, I've probably taken up more of the time than I was allotted. So I'm going to pause there, and I'm happy to take any questions that you guys have.
Okay, thank you so much, Dickson. Next, we have George Emmons.
Oh, great. Thank you very much. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Again, George Emmons, class of 2012. My path to Integral was, it was always, I can't really put a finger on it. It just kind of fell into kind of where I was going. I always knew I wanted to be a lawyer. And so I wanted to pursue a education that was going to help me get there. And so I've dabbled, like maybe I'll do politics, maybe I'll do history. I always thought, certain majors tend to lead you to law school. And I remember it was my English teacher in senior year. She said, I went to St. Mary's and I heard of this Integral program, and I think you would really flourish in it. And so I said, oh, I'll check it out. It sounded kind of interesting. It was the seminar based, but it wasn't traditional, right? So I was kind of a little skeptical. So then I come onto campus, and Brother Mel, I spoke with Brother Mel, and he said, George, I know you're interested in politics, but I think Integral would really suit you. And I think you should sit in on a class. And so I said, okay, might as well, I'm always going to have politics. Like I know what that's going to look like. So let me try Integral. So at the time, I had no idea what I was getting into. But when I reflect back, it was Newton. I sat in on a junior Sir Isaac Newton math tutorial. That was the first thing I saw. And when I got into the class, I I knew that was what I wanted to do. I had no idea what they were saying. I had no idea what was going on, but I liked the structure. I liked what Integral was doing, and I liked the collaboration, as Aco and Dickson have pointed out. I fell in love with it. And then after that, of course, I talked with Dennis Kelly, and it was signed, sealed, and delivered. You know, I signed on the dotted line there. And so that's how I fell into Integral, and I'm so glad that I chose it. Integral taught me not only how to communicate, how to write, but as has been said already, you know, to be able to listen. It's a skill that's very important in the working world. And it's interesting because I always thought, you know, I want to be a lawyer. I'm going to go to law school. I deferred. I didn't go to law school immediately after St. Mary's, and I actually went into advertising sales. And I was in advertising sales for 4 years. And it was very interesting when I was interviewing, because people could tell that I could communicate and kind of explain what Integral was, because you always had to explain, like, what is Integral? No one knows what that is. So it was always an opportunity, you know, to showcase, you know, how you can communicate, how you can do those different things. And so Integral helped me in that career. I did very well in sales, but you know, my calling was always the law, and I always wanted to be a lawyer. And so I went to law school. Integral is very compatible with the way law school works and the Socratic method that law school has. Law school is a little more direct. It might not be as collaborative as Integral, but you know, you read texts and you discuss them, and you critically think. And Integral trains you very well for that. And I felt that I was very well prepared for law school, and I did very well there. And I mean, now that I'm a lawyer, and I've been a lawyer for a number of years now, Integral teaches you how to think and how to write, and it gives you all the mechanics that you need, especially for a career in law. I feel that every day I'm critically reading, analyzing, writing, advocating, all those things Integral taught me, and I can go back to those all the time. And so I feel that Integral was the building block to make me be successful. And I can't imagine going through school not in the Integral program. It taught me, like Dickson pointed out, you know, this lifelong curiosity, you know, constantly wanting to learn. I even, you know, to this day, I'm kind of going back to some of those classic books and reading them again. And it was just, words can't express how important Integral was to me, to my career, and just to all the skills that I've learned. And so I know a lot of people here are current students, so they know how great it is. And I just will say, I think when you go on into your career and you look back, you'll find that this was probably one of the best things that you could have chosen to do. And so I look back fondly on all my Integral time, and I'm very, very happy that I chose that for my career. So thank you for that.
Thank you, George. All right, so next we have Jack Iles.
Thanks, Julie. Yeah, so Jack Iles, class of 2017. I think a little early to say my career has been a success, but I think it's off to a good start. Like George was saying, I look back on Integral, and it's some of the best 4 years of my life. I came to St. Mary's as a business major, and I was really attracted to the seminar program. I thought, wow, that's great. I can get my, you know, boring BA degree, and I can read all these classic texts at the same time, books I had wanted to read. And then at weekend of welcome, they brought in a couple of folks, some tutors, some students, and they talked about this major Integral, and it was kind of vague, and I didn't fully get it, but they said you can switch in, you can transfer out, no problem. And I said, hey, let's do it. Let's give it a try. And my dad, he was down the street in Lafayette at the Roundup having a few drinks. And we met up afterwards. And I said, oh, I switched to Integral. And he, you know, almost like spat out his coffee, said, what were you doing? You're supposed to be a business administration major. But he really came around as I would tell him what we were studying, what we were learning. When I look back on what I learned in Integral, that's really, you know, helped me flourish in my career, it's hard to pinpoint any one thing. probably parrot some things that have been said earlier. A lot of the soft skills that really get fostered in seminar, those are just invaluable. You're going to work with people you love, people that you tolerate, maybe, to put it bluntly. And, you know, you might have some classmates like that. And that's fine. That's how real life is. But learning how to work with them, to collaborate, is so important. How to, you know, stay patient and not get super worked up. You literally learn Greek, and people will say like, oh, that's Greek to me, I don't get it. But what Integral does, I think, is it empowers you. It makes you confident in your faculties to learn, right? You do Euclid, you do Newton, you read Einstein, and then you'll find yourself on a job someday maybe, and you'll have to write a weird Excel formula, or, you know, do a light computer coding or something. And you think, you know what? Courtwright and I worked through logic problems. I can do this. And it's like a solid foundation that just really lends itself to almost anything that you'll need to do. You learn how to think critically, you learn how to solve problems. You're a phenomenal communicator by the time you get out of the program. And if you've got to write a white page to really get your boss to okay an idea, you're going to pull out all these arguments that, hey, you don't believe them, but they're going to convince your boss, and you'll get the funding you need. It's amazing what you can do after Integral. And what is, you know, maybe not really discussed that much, but going through the Integral program, it makes you awesome at cocktail parties. You've got such a wide breadth of like cultural knowledge that whoever you engage with, you're able to just kind of pluck something and run with it, which is largely, I think, how I landed this awesome job that I've got working with the food industry. I met a guy who loves Spain. He's got a house in San Sebastian. He was selling Spanish wines, and I talked about Don Quixote, my favorite book that we were reading in the program at the time. And we spent like an hour just, you know, talking about Don Quixote. And so, I don't know, I think the program is just totally invaluable. And I think it's, like I said earlier, it's a great foundation that you can build whatever you want upon it.
Thanks so much, Jack. So now we have Joanne Stockwell.
Thank you, Julie. That was great, Jack. I had never really made the connection point for my ability to mingle at a cocktail party and my success in Integral. So I have a whole new perspective now on why my life is the way it is. I was class of 1990. I wrote my thesis on the women of the Divine Comedy. I was definitely a lost soul in high school, never really fit in, didn't find my place. I was a troublemaker, barely graduated, but I knew that there was something else out there that was going to inspire me. And I was lucky enough to find the program, or the program found me. It was life-changing in so many ways, of just being able to find the ability in myself to do things that I never thought I could do. And I think that was what I took away from the program, is that necessary, that bravery, that ability to take a risk, standing up at the board, doing a math problem still to this day sort of gives me chills, but I never felt that I wasn't supported or given the skills to do what I was able to do and accomplish in the Integral program. And I took that with me. After I graduated, I had no plans. I decided I was going to travel around Europe for a few months, backpack, see the world, sort of hang out with different authors in their spaces, which was kind of nice to make it real in a way that I never thought I would do. When I came back, I needed a job. So same sort of as the other alumni here, I started at the bottom. I was managing a call center at AT&T. And I really did. I was curious. I wanted to learn. I was thinking big from day one. I dived deep into all of the details of the job. I was passionate about talking to my employees and helping them make the connections between what they were doing, answering the phone, to what the company was doing. I spent 15 years at AT&T. I actually ended my career supporting the CEO, doing all of his internal communications for the 260,000 employees. So communications definitely was a theme throughout my career. I went on from that. I've worked at 4 other huge corporations, Salesforce. Now I'm at Amazon, which is massive. I've continued to learn, right? I have no fear of learning. And I think that really is what sets me apart from my peers. I'm diving deep into AI, machine learning right now. I'm trying to make the connection of how we teach computers to what we teach, how this relates to the integral program. I think that there's so much potential. It's always that art of learning, and there's nothing else like the program. And I would highly recommend it to anyone. And there's no limits once you kind of have that spark.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Is it Joanne?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Great, great. Thank you so much.
Good.
And last but not least, we have Stefanie Wang.
Yeah, so I'm just really excited to just like see Courtright and Sukahara again. So this is just for Courtright. This is for you. I wanted to do it initially. So this is just
We're a
when we
great
did
winged
the
nation.
intramurals. We're mighty winged nation. I know. It's I had to dust these off for you. So let's see. I think of all the glib decisions I made as a teenager, I think just choosing to major in the integral program after a 5-minute PowerPoint presentation was the best choice that I made in my teens. And I think, I mean, hopefully there's still more to my life than, you know, what this pandemic has to offer. I don't know, who knows? So I think it's still one of the best decisions of my life. I think integral was a really transformative experience for me. I feel like I was just like this white hot ball of like emotion and thoughts. And then I think integral honed me into like a really critical thinking person. And I think I can wax poetic about a lot of the experiences I had, but I think the others before me talked a lot about those, you know, really similar experiences, you know, learning to communicate, learning to work with others. I think I had George, I don't know if you said it on I think it must have been like my Newton, because we were down to one section at that point. I think I call this like a particularly like violent argumentative class. Theo Carlisle called us passionate. And so we were definitely fiery. And I think I stoked the fire intentionally sometimes. So, but just learning to just like think on your feet, be quick on your feet has been something that's been really helpful throughout my whole career. After integral, I took a gap year to, no, I didn't. I'm getting my own life mixed up. I went to Smith in the postdoc program. So I got my PhD in math. So I did went to Smith for a 1-year bridge program, but took a gap year, and then I went on to get my PhD in math. And I think integral just gave me a lot of the soft skills that mathematicians don't necessarily have or just like pick up in a traditional major. I mean, perhaps some of you are getting this, but I got a lot of the, wow, you're so like eloquent. And I'm like, yeah, what did I do for 4 years? And so that was, I mean, that's something that's valuable, you know, because right now teaching, you know, communicating effectively to my students is really great. And also, you know, coming into math as an outsider, I think it's given me a different perspective on learning math. Like I wanted to do math, but learning math as a non-traditional person was hard at times. You know, I felt like I didn't speak like some technical language, you know, and I think that's really informed my way of communicating with students now. That I think has been really valuable, you know. And let's see, I think, and just circling back to my experiences as a student, I feel like I wasn't forced to specialize and just kind of get into like this little pigeonhole by the end of my 4 years. You know, I think I still wanted more specific and technical knowledge. And so, you know, I got that during my graduate school years. But there was a wide variety of skills that I had learned that I just don't think I would have gotten in any traditional program. And I really value that, you know, like oral communication, written communication is really important. Being able to like, just really like think on my feet. And I also felt like in the integral program, we were treated more or less as whole people, you know, and you learn and grow with the same people over 4 years. And you also see the same tutors over and over. And it's just this really amazing transformative experience. You know, sometimes by the end of the 4 years, you're like, oh my gosh, I've seen your face every semester for all of college. But then, you know, you miss that. It's kind of amazing growing. It's kind of this like experience that nobody else can really understand unless if you go to St. John's, you know, it just ruins you for the rest of your life for, you know, conversations, you know, like you're great at cocktail parties, but you're just like, oh, Like, am I the only one who's read War and Peace here? You know? And you can also just drop that bomb on someone. It's like, oh yeah, we read War and Peace in like 2.5 weeks on top of all these other things. Like, no big deal. Like, isn't this like your normal life? And to just really see how, like, I don't know, just to read these things that you might not have time for, you know, in another life. I was interested in a lot of the texts that Integral had on the curriculum, but I think no one's going to take a deep dive into Sartre's Nausea just for kicks, you know, by themselves, you know, unless if you read it for a seminar and to discuss it with people. It's not a happy book. So I think it's a really unique experience. I highly value it. I think if I had to, like, you know, just redo college over and everything, like I wouldn't. I would still choose Integral over and over. You know, despite being a mathematician now and being in this different, a more specialized area, I would still choose Integral over and over. And I wouldn't make any different choices with that.
Great. Thank you, Stefanie. It's so great to hear from each of you. And I was just so struck by how you all had this common experience, and yet each of you were able to use your integral education in such different ways. So maybe now we can open it up for questions and answers from the floor. And so typically what we do in the integral program is we give students the chance to ask questions first, and we ask tutors and alumni and friends to wait for about 10 minutes or so, and let students be the one to take the lead in asking questions. And then after 10 minutes or so, I'll open up the floor to anyone here who'd like to ask more questions. So who would like to begin? Molly?
Hi, I'm a sophomore in the integral program, and it was really, really cool being able to hear just so many different points of view from all of you who are in many, many different fields. That was interesting to me. And I myself am interested in potentially going into law, but I'm not really sure yet. So I just had a couple questions for George, starting out with what area of law do you currently work in?
So I work with the federal government. So I handle some criminal issues, for the most part, some immigration issues. So yeah, I'm with the federal government presently.
How did integral, I suppose, like prepare you for the daily life of law, I suppose, in terms of do you often write? Do you spend most of your time writing, or mainly with discussions, or actually like in the court and stuff as well?
Yeah, it kind of runs the gambit, you know, with my work. I mean, in the current pandemic situation, there's less in court, right? But yeah, my job is written communication, a lot of in court advocacy. I mean, when we were back in the office, you know, I was going to court just about every day. And so, I mean, that includes, it's not only communicating with the judge, it's also communicating with opposing counsel, you know, and trying to find where they stand and what their issues are, and kind of being able to kind of discuss that way. But integral, I mean, it's been, especially in writing, I feel that integral set me at a very high level to be able to write in a really, not only write well, but in a concise manner that comes across persuasive. I mean, I remember I used to write on and on and on. And, you know, it took tutors like Courtright and Ted to kind of hone me in and really, how can you say that in a more effective manner? And so, yeah, all those skills integrals really helped me with.
Cool. All right. Thank you.
No problem. Thank you.
Great. Do we have other questions from students? Spencer.
I'm Spencer. I'm a senior in the integral program, and I'm not one who's very interested in law or anything like that. So thought it was a great opportunity to hear from some of you guys about some of the different career paths coming from integral. And a question I've had, a lot of you guys talked about your progression from kind of starting at the bottom and making your way to where you are right now. And I have applied for a lot of different jobs while I've been, or not a lot, but different jobs while I've been in college in the integral program. But obviously, or well, none of them have been that high profile. I wanted to kind of ask what it looks like being in an interview with, like integral as your major, and how do you have any tips? How has it helped? And like, I guess any advice there? Sorry if my question isn't very clear.
No, I want to take it just a stab just because I just went through the interview process. So my job was eliminated at Salesforce and during the pandemic, and I interviewed at 20 different companies. And some were very receptive to my integral, because I always bring that out. It comes across on my resume. I always make a point of explaining it. I don't hide it. I use it as a pride point. Even 700 people in the entire world have this degree. It's made me who I am. I'm very proud of it. And there are companies that will see that as an attribute, and that's probably going to be a good fit for you, right? So it's an interesting thing. Some will they aren't going to be able to relate, and then you might find yourself struggling at a company that doesn't value someone who maybe that has the technical skills, but if they're looking for somebody who can think and can lead and can understand how to take things, be inventive, and start with nothing and really go with something, those will probably be the best fits for you, and hopefully that will come across in the interview. So I think it's always, throw it out there, make sure that you don't put it aside, or that it's too hard to explain, or it will make them not think that you're serious because you don't have your MBA or whatever it might be at that point. And try to relate it to then what you can bring to that company because of the skills that you've developed, and be it specific, right? Be very much that you can write, you can clarify your thoughts, you can work with difficult people. All those things that you were learning are very much day to day in every business environment. Who knew that the critical would be absolutely perfect for dealing with many business scenarios that you would not have thought about at the time.
Also,
Yeah,
just jump in. Oh,
Yeah.
Oh, I was just going to go off of what Joanne said. Integral, it's not a weak point on your resume. It's a strong point. It's, it's something that you should be proud of. It's something that you should highlight. It's, as Joanne said, it's you point out what you learned in integral and how that's going to make you a good employee to whoever you're interviewing with, because there are innumerable examples that you'll be able to find. It really does make you a strong candidate.
I'll also just jump in because I'm on the academic job market right now, and so I've just had some recent interviews, and there are going to be people who value an integral education, and there are going to be people who don't. I just in a more specialized field, like mathematics, sometimes they just want you to churn out a bunch of academic papers in peer-reviewed journals, and there's advertised like, oh yes, we value teaching, but that's more of an advertisement and not put so much for. It doesn't have much basis in reality, and so for people who see value in the integral program, there's interdisciplinary work, not necessarily just with, for mathematics, just in other STEM fields, but also just with the humanities as well, with sociology, with social justice. There's a lot of work to be done there, and I think a lot of people are moving toward different learning models and just a sage on the stage lecturing at a bunch of students. And so for places that, value that type of human interaction and that type of, more, they call it innovative, but I'm just this has been around for a while, teaching and everything, there's going to be places that see value. And it can be really hard because you're probably going to sift through a lot of employers, a lot of people who don't see that value. And it can be a real grind, but you still have these great skills, you have these wonderful experiences, and you can contribute a lot to whatever company, whatever place that you're working at. So I would say, don't let the naysayers just kind of get you down on this education, because it's really valuable and it really is a one-of-a-kind experience.
Yeah, hey Spencer, I was gonna build on what Jack was saying, since you're probably the closest to the contemporary of the graduating seniors here. Lean forward. First of all, at 21, 22, it doesn't matter what job you're interviewing for unless it's very technically specific. No one expects, at least when I used to hire, you don't know anything. I mean, I don't, there isn't an expectation that, hey, I'm an accounting major and I'm going to show up and I'm going to be a CPA. So what? The thing is, you're not that, right? You should just have a lot of passion about what Integral meant for you. And as you tell the story, and if you really do believe it and you have the passion, what's going to come across for most recruiters, for people at your stage, would be, wow, this person really understands how to communicate, gets a point across, is passionate about what they did. Can they label and link different things? Can you tie it together? And can they learn? Because at this stage, what most recruiters are looking for, it's going to be a couple of different categories, all right? For the one, for very specific technical skills, which may or may not be what you're looking at. The other category, which is much broader, is talent. Is this someone that can demonstrate some basic skills and it's talent that I think I can now use as raw material now, and we'll put them in the training program. We will tutor, we will mentor, and they do the work. And that's think about what they're thinking about and what their selection criteria may be, and shape your narrative around that.
Okay, I think we have time for one more question from a student. Molly.
This is more directed to Stefanie, just in terms of you moving from integral, like the big liberal arts degree, to a STEM degree in a grad school program. So in terms of just having an interest in those in a STEM field, be it math, for me personally, it's like marine ecology. Did you have to take like a bunch of additional classes like on the side in order to apply to a STEM field graduate degree, or were you able to just do it straight from being in the integral program?
No, I needed the coursework. So the one-year bridge program at Smith is essentially like getting a double major at a different institution. And so it was really to support women in mathematics who had a light math major or a math minor who came to math late from a non-traditional path to get into math or stats PhD program. I really needed that bridge year because I didn't have anything close to a solid major by the time I graduated. I had the minor. So I don't know what it would be like for a lab science, but I know just for something more on the abstract side, you do need a lot of course exposure. I think increasingly, at least in math, there are programs that are amenable to people from non-traditional backgrounds, and they're you can take undergraduate coursework in tandem with graduate coursework, and maybe just have a little bit more catch-up time within the program and have a more modified path. I'm not sure with the hard sciences what's gonna happen, like what's happening there. But I would say just like keep taking coursework. I think people are realizing that people can have different interests and just have non-traditional paths to get there. Yeah, do you have any other questions on that in that vein?
No, actually, that answered it really well. So thank you. That helps a lot.
Okay, great. So I think we can just open it up to anyone who would like to ask a question, or if the panelists have questions for each other, they should feel free to ask them as well.
I just have a non-serious question. I see Brother Kenneth has joined. I'm just like, where's Mr. Riley? Is he burning down another guard shack?
I am not Riley's keeper. Although I admit he needs one.
I'm sorry, what was,
Go ahead.
what was this about? Sorry, Tutor Riley burning down something?
Oh my gosh. Okay, so has anyone heard this story? Because I can just spill the tea right now, you know. Well, when he was a student at St. Mary's, allegedly, I think it was like the student body president was a real wild one. And there was a guard shack at the front of the campus. It was burned down. Mr. Riley was involved, and he says he was part of the rescue relief team, but we all know he's a shifty fellow, so I'm not so sure about that. And then surprisingly enough, when I moved to Massachusetts the first time, his cousin actually owns a bookstore in town. So I went over to meet his cousin, and then he was like, ask Mike about the bank in Isla Vista. And yeah. But according to Mr. Riley, the bank burned down before he even moved there.
Gosh, thank you for these stories. They just made my evening.
Okay, does anyone have other questions?
I did want to throw out there, because Aco mentioned earlier, is networking and how important it is. And I think that there is truly something that if there's any students or past students, I mean, having something where, as I've built my network and how introducing people to anyone, so I'd put that out there as an open, on LinkedIn, go ahead and reach out to me, and I'm happy to make connections. I've worked in bioscience, I've worked in some cloud computing, I've done all kinds of different things. So I know somebody who might know somebody. So if you were just looking for someone to talk to, I'm happy to offer that up to any other graduates or anyone who would be interested.
Yeah, and if anyone wants to email me about just graduate school in STEM or anything, like just feel free to get in touch. I can just put you in touch with someone that I know, or at least just kind of like point you to some resources.
Hey, I think I saw Joseph's hand up, and then after that, Molly.
Yeah, well, I'm Joseph. I'm a junior in the program. I was wondering about, this is sort of a general question, but I guess, George, you might be able to help with this since I'm interested a little bit in the law field. Sort of similar to Molly's question earlier about sort of preparing for a more specific education in, some of you talked about the soft skills that Integral teaches us. For those who went into graduate school, did you feel that you were prepared for the more hard skills of the area that you went into, or did you have to take other supplemental classes sort of outside of that to get ready to talk about law, for example, or those sorts of things?
Sure. Yeah, no, great question. And I'm sure a lot of the other alums on the panel could probably speak to this too, beyond just the law. But yeah, I think Integral, especially law school, it really does kind of, it is very helpful. Like I said, the method of learning in law school is not identical, but it's very similar to how Integral is. And it's supposed to be more of a discussion. Law school's not, I mean, it's more the professor guides it a little more in law school, but for the most part, you're reading a text. In this case, it's a case, and then you discuss it amongst your peers and with the professor. So I'd say for law, particularly like you're saying, Integral is very direct, I think, in helping kind of lead you down that path. Yeah, all the critical reading, writing, I had all the fundamental building blocks when I went into law school. So I think that if you're interested in a career in law, Integral is very compatible with it, and you'll be very well prepared, in my opinion.
Thank you.
Sure.
All right, Molly.
This is a question for Dickson. I remember that you were saying that you were originally interested in law yourself, and then decided not. And then you also mentioned philosophy as well, potentially pursuing that afterwards, because that was also something that that I'm potentially thinking of as well, if law eventually like doesn't agree with me. So I was wondering, like, what was it exactly about each of those things that made you choose a different path?
Wow, that's a great question. I often ask myself the same thing. Well, with law and with respect to lawyers, it's not that there's anything, judgmental I'm making. It was as I was just talking to other lawyers, and maybe I just didn't talk to the right folks. And most of the folks at that time that I knew were all corporate lawyers, and they would tell me about their everyday life and what they dealt with. And while dealing with torts and contracts could be incredibly interesting, it just wasn't interesting for me. And then philosophy, I think it was for the most part, and it becomes more of a love and a passion as you go through the integral program. I don't think you can help but kind of fall in love with what you're doing. And I thought, can I make a vocation of this and continue this? And the path for that would have been graduate school, master's, PhD, and then what do you do with that? You teach, maybe you write, and at least at the time, a combination of that seemed like an awfully long road, and I needed to make money. And one of the things that I also did when I was there, while I was doing integral, I double minored. So I had a history minor and a computer science minor. And the history just came along because I did a bunch of AP classes in high school. And so that was sort of a gimme. I had the first year and a half kind of audited through anyway. And so I just did it just as to finish it. And that was when I was there, they had just started the computer science program, and I did it mostly as a dare. I mean, freshman year, my friends were saying, you're never going to get a job. Of course, I'm in Midi Hall with Cartwright and, all these accounting majors and business majors. And I said, really? What do you think is difficult? And they said, well, I'm taking this computer science course. And I said, okay, well, I've got some capacity. And so I took some courses and I loved it. It was easy, or not easy, but it was fun. I mean, it's in some ways like doing a Euclidean proof. It's problem solving, and so that led to some opportunities that were more eminent. And then after that, it was just sort of pursuing my passion of what was really interesting and what are difficult problems to solve, and an opportunity. I spent 10 years in management consulting after my stint as a EA and as a product person. And consulting is like the legal profession. I was incredibly well suited for that, right? You think on your feet, you're synthesizing a bunch of different things. You're advocating a position. And so, that's another kind of professional path that, to consider.
Okay, great. I was just wondering if the tutors would like to say anything. Just what is it like seeing your former students off in the world?
That's why we do what we do. Secla seclorum. And besides, the great winged nation must expand.
Okay, it's just so great to hear from each of you, and it's just so interesting to hear your stories. But I'm afraid we're running out of time, so I just want to thank all the panelists who've come to share their experiences, and I also just want to thank everyone in the audience who've come to spend time with us. And I hope you found it as interesting as I did. So I just like to thank everyone to ask everyone to join me in thanking our panelists. And then I think what I'll do is I'll just leave the Zoom open for a little bit for anyone who'd like to stay and visit for a bit.
Well, thanks.
Thank you very much.
I have a quick question for some of the panelists. I'm Camila, I'm a junior. I just have a question that's pushing a little bit on Spencer's previous question, which is, I guess, how do you sell Integral to an employer? Like, how do you accurately describe and convey what Integral really is concisely to someone for them to actually understand what we do? Like, more than just saying we're a great books program. So I'm curious how, if any of you guys have had experience doing that and success. I'd love to know how.
Camilla, are you Gabby's sister?
I am, yeah.
Nice.
Good to see you.
Nice. In my experience, I've been fortunate. I've talked to St. John alum, so they got it right away. I talked to someone who was in the military. And when I told him, oh, we read Kant and I'm glad he didn't ask me to explain it. but he was just instantly happy, so you'll sometimes be fortunate enough to have people who get it and they're excited about it just when you start to explain it. Other times there will be people who maybe they don't quite get it, maybe they're more technical, and then sort of like Dickinson was saying, you lean in to that technical aspect. You talk more about the math, you talk about the sciences. I had to do this for a jam term one time. I wanted to take the art and science of making beer, and the professor wouldn't let anyone take it unless they've taken 2, biology courses. I didn't do that. So I went in with the elements of chemistry and all my, notes and highlights. And I said, look, this is what I'm reading. This is what we're studying. And he got super excited right away. He didn't care about the math. He didn't care about the philosophy. It was the science. So know your audience. I mean, I had rhetoric with Brother Kenneth. That's something that they teach you. Know your audience. Know who you're speaking to.
Practice your elevator pitch, man. You're going to have to do it a million times in your life. So get really comfortable with it now and spend 4 years learning how to learn, and they'll get them to ask you more and get them interested. Find that hook.
If I can jump in too, I am an alumni as well. I just wanted to sit in because I was just fascinated by the topic, and it's great to see so much interest. When you are interviewing, if you have I encourage anyone who is going into an interview, dig deep into the website of the company that you're interviewing with, try to find out what the job description is, and just kind of think about how your integral mindset will help you to solve a problem that maybe they're having. Don't be afraid to ask questions about what problems have you had, or what challenges are you running up against, and just try to think about how your integral education could help them to problem solve or move forward and keep succeeding.
Yeah, in connection with that, I just really loved what Joanne said earlier about being fearless to learn new things. And it just, really strikes me that that's part of the experience of being a student in the integral program. One day you're translating ancient Greek, and then the next thing you know, you're studying Newton. So it seems like the ability to pivot in uncertain circumstances would serve you well.
Yeah, Camilla, I would just add to that, in terms of your question, how do you sell it? Describe the program generally, and then some of the soft skills that you're talking about. But I have always found when you start to talk about how seminars are structured, and then go into excruciating detail about non-regs, most employers are going to say, wow, you went through 4 years of that. So that means you've got some sense of some resilience. You're able to take criticism and also defend the position. And those are the kind of things that, that actually have a lot of longevity. I mean, the rest of it, you'll learn, right? They can teach you, and you can teach yourself technical skills, but it's some of those other experiences that I think actually are valued by a lot of employers.
One of the things that I would add to that is practice interviewing. Have mock interviews with your friends, with family, with other people. When we're preparing candidates to go and interview with the client site, we'll take them through a couple of mock interviews, because interviewing in and of itself is still also a skill, a little bit of an art. You don't need to take classes on how to interview, but what people are really looking for, to kind of echo what Dick said, is that you're coming into probably your first job. You're probably not going to have the exact skill set that they're looking for. What they're trying to find is someone who is articulate, can get along with people, has a good head on their shoulders, can learn, and is kind of energetic and excited about the company and what the company does. So Laura, that was probably the best piece of advice. When you're going to go interview somewhere, know what the company does. One of the first questions that they may ask is, how do you see your background applying to the company, or why are you interested in this particular position, or why are you interested in our company? And you'll be surprised how many times somebody will go interview. They haven't even looked at the company's website. They're not sure what the company does or how it applies. And that leaves just a real bad impression. So, if you want little tips, that's probably the best ones that I can give you. And then at some point, it's be yourself. Don't try to be something that you're not. It's okay to say, I don't know the answer, but I know where to get it. And if you ask me in 5 minutes, I can answer that question for you, because that will just show that you're resourceful. You can go out and find answers, when you're going to be doing your job. You're not just going to need someone to hold your hand the whole time. They want you to be as independent as possible. I mean, you're not coming in as an expert, but you are coming in as someone that will be entry level. So how much time are they going to have to spend with you until you can, run on your own?
Hi, I have a question. My name is Anthony. I'm a junior. I have a question for Joanne. And my question is not so much to do with the integral program, but with, I just haven't had the pleasure of meeting an employee of a company of the size of Amazon. And I was wondering, how did you connect with a company of that size? And how did your integral background help you find the position that was right for you?
Thanks for the question. Yeah, it was a little shocking. They are huge, but Jeff Bezos, I would encourage you to look him up. He's very much of almost an integral student mindset. He truly believes a lot in just letting things happen and being very thoughtful about single-threaded conversations, and always sort of looking at ways to take ownership and invent and simplify. So there was a lot of fits that I liked about, and once I got to know what his leadership style was, how they found me. And then the interview process was, they do a loop where they're always trying to raise the bar. So they're constantly, the interview was 6 hours of interviewing. And then I had to write a 2-page paper within an hour to get back to him on my most inventive idea I've ever had in my career. So it was, again, back to my integral of saying, I can do this. This is something that I can have these conversations, and I can turn that paper around, and I can kind of hit those bullet points that they're going to be interesting. And they saw me being a good fit for the company. So that's the thing, but it's going to be hard. There's going to be a lot of times, a lot of rejection, and you aren't the right fit. But again, back to Aco, is that be yourself, and really I did tie it back and said, hey, I learned how to think, and there's not a lot of people out there that I really take that as seriously as an integral student. So it's you never know where life's going to lead you. Gotta keep wandering around. A lot of like Brother Kenneth's discussions. You never know. You start with one place and you end in another. But yeah, reach out. I mean, make connections, talk to people, find people in the areas that you want, do your research.
Question for, I missed some of the talk about,
I'm afraid you're cutting in and out.
Did someone say something? Sorry.
Yeah, I'm sorry, could you repeat?
I missed some of the talk about graduate school. I apologize if somebody's asked this already, but did you find you had any advantages like in your graduate program with regards to like the technical aspects for math because of integral, or was it just the more like
I think
talking aspects?
It's different. I think math is how do I phrase this? Am I being recorded?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Then I'll say this instead. You can feel free to email me separately for a more perhaps direct conversation. I think in integral, I think after like many semesters of reading like very dense, difficult text, that in a way prepared me to also just like read the textbook in graduate school. I think it's surprising how many people don't read the books that they buy for classes. And so to me, that's something that's like, yeah, of course I have to be prepared going to class. You know, this is something that I'm going to do, you know, and you, I think in integral, a lot of the things were collaborative, you know, for some of the math classes. And I guess, I don't know, those late night like conversations in Saga as well about, you know, what we had just discussed in seminar or had just like argued about in seminar. So I think that set me up for, you know, group work, you know, in graduate school, which was very helpful. I There's just some technical skills and exposure that you need for mathematics. So I don't think integral in a way helped me for, you know, learning proofwriting because the process is very different. And I think some traditional mathematics isn't taught in a way that is, I think, directly compatible with the skills that with the approaches that you take writing a seminar paper, for instance. But I think after just, you know, some years of reflection, I'm able to kind of like, you know, really use some of my integral skills in the current field that I'm in. So yes, integral helped in many ways. I think, you know, being able to connect with people is one of the most important things that I gained from integral. But I think in terms of like actually like learning some of like the mathematics, it's less so with those technical skills.
Okay, so if there are no further questions, I just want to thank all the panelists again for taking the time, and the audience for joining us. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much.
Thanks for having
Thank you
us.
for organizing.
Yes, thank you.
Great to be here.
I have
Thank
one
you.
more thing
Yes,
I
Anthony.
may ask.
Okay.
Just a brief question for Jack. I think you were the most recent graduate, so I was just wondering if you could talk briefly about the path you took following graduation.
Yeah. So I had an internship with this company, Otis McAllister. They are a food company, CPG company, import-export company. So we import a ton of rice. We do canned seafood, confection, a lot of chocolates. We export like See's chocolate. And this company, Otis McAllister, the firm, had started importing Spanish wine and cider. And they, I don't know, had me as a college intern and thought I probably drank too much and I should go sell wine. So that's what we started doing. And a lot of first jobs that you get are going to be kind of crummy. If you go into sales, you're going to do a lot of cold calling. If you're recruiting, you're just going to be placing people. If you're an accountant, you'll just be, you know, crunching numbers. If, you know, you're a lawyer, you'll just be looking for case, I don't know, brief studies. But you do a lot of tough work. And I was very fortunate to go into this job and got put with this sort of startup division, which within a larger company. And they had me doing everything from going to crummy wine and art shows like the Lafayette Wine and Art Show. And I would talk about the wine and stuff, to going and calling on corporate accounts, like sitting with the Bevmo buyer, to even getting to go sit with the manufacturer in Spain and do a business review. So I got this wide expanse of, you know, just experience. And it didn't really work out. It's tough to sell wine. So I ended up jumping ship and working over in our rice and grains division, which is kind of our bread and butter. But it was an eye-opening experience, and it made all of the minutia work so worthwhile to be able to see and really do firsthand some of the more exciting stuff as well. So what I would encourage really is to get an internship, stick with it, network. I had a lot of friends who were business accounting majors who were, you know, working to become CPAs. I had some friends in the integral program who went on to do the St. Mary's executive management program, which I'm sure is fine, but I used to tease them because when I had this entry-level job, I was learning a ton at work, and they were paying to learn the same thing. But just get out there, take whatever position you can, and just accept as much work as you can and responsibility to learn, see what you like, and impress your boss. Because you will, you're an integral student.
Great, thank you.
All right, with that, I am taking off, but please feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn or wherever. I'm also in Oakland, so if you guys ever want to, chit chat or whatever, I'm available. But have a great evening, and you guys are really in a wonderful spot. I have a stack of books on my nightstand, and I wish I had the time to read them that you guys do. So enjoy it.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
All right. Good night. Thank you.